Welcome to Hindi reading class number 2, and today we're going to discuss the characters you see below, and we're going to have a little bit of word reading practice. So, first, we're going to go through some listening practice. Last week we learned how to say these, but you should also know how to recognize because speaking is only half the battle. So, I'm going to say one of these, and then you choose which number it is. Ah, that was number 2. Ah, that was number 2 again. That was number 1. Ah, that was number 2. That was number 1. That was also number 1. All right, now let's move on to the second set. E. That was number 1. E. That was number 2. E. That was number 2. Are you noticing the pattern here? One is longer and slightly lower pitched than the other. E. That was number 1. E. That was number 1. E. That was number 1. E. That was number 2. E. That was number 2. So the third set of somewhat similar sounds. Oo. That was number 1. Ooh. That was number 2. Ooh. That was number 2. Ooh. That was number 2. Ooh. That was number 1. Ooh. That was number 2. Ooh. That was number 2. Ooh. That was number 1. So you see, this follows the same pattern as I and E, oo and ooh. The second being about twice as long and, in addition, slightly lower pitched. Now the first one, and ah, these are actually very different sounds. Ah and very different, but you can also see that one is substantially longer than the other. It's very important to distinguish these two, and ah, because these are traditionally very difficult for English speakers to distinguish, and it can drastically change the meaning of words, which we won't discuss this week, but after you learn how to read fully, meaning the week after, the lesson after next, then we will discuss how much it can change the meaning of words. We've covered what's in red so far. This is the alphabet. It is the meaning of life. And we've covered what is in blue, and today we're going to cover what's in red. So take a good look, and here we go. So this is a new vowel sound that you haven't heard before, and it is pronounced O, 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 O. Okay, so let's hear the female native speaker's voice.
O, O, O.
All right, so you get that? O. So if we were relating this to English, what might we say? Well, it's kind of like the sound in the word apple core, right? Core, core. Of course, it's and also like the letter O. But once again, we get rid of that slight oo sound at the end. So instead of saying O or core, you just say core. O. It's very flat, very stable. O. All right. So how else can we think about this? No. Well, we hope he's not about to get hit by a car, but that's the sound that you can think about. It's a very flat, very it's a long sound. Once again, this is a long sound, not short. It is oh. All right. And you see this one looks virtually the same as the last. So what's different? It has two lines on top. Two lines on the bottom and two lines on top. The first one had two lines on the bottom and only one little air sticking out. But here we have two sticking out. Now this is ah, ah, ah. Yes. So the funny thing about this is that remember how before we were saying that every Hindi vowel can be said using only one vowel, and two can be not doesn't have, they don't have to be, but they can be said using a combination of vowels. Now this is one of the ones that can be said using a combination, and the combination is actually the older pronunciation. So the alternative pronunciation of this letter is ow, and we will talk about that a little bit later. But first, let's hear the woman voice.
O or O. O or O. O or O.
So if you didn't know already, what she's saying is or, which is what we said, or, and or is the Hindi word for and then the second pronunciation, which is ow. So this is aw, 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 ow, ow, ow. So how could we relate this to English? Well, strangely enough, it sounds like the American English pronunciation of the in dog, dog, ah, dog, dog. And it also sounds like the American English combination of vowels in owl, owl, owl. Not quite, but a little bit. Owl, right? So you just flatten it up a little bit. Ah, ah, ow, ow, ow. It also sounds strangely like the sound that supposedly a crow makes. Caw, 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 aw. All right. So now the older pronunciation, as we said, is ow, which has changed over time so that in modern Hindi, you can say both. You can either say aw or you can say ow, and you will hear both. This is actually still the ow pronunciation is still quite common, as oftentimes you will hear people say the number 9 as now instead of naw. Either is fine, but now you'll hear a lot. So, on to the next, and this is a,
A,
a, a, a. All right, let's hear the female voice.
A, A, A.
All right, so you get that? A. So how might we relate this to English? Well, it's kind of like the sound in whale. Of course, you hear what the problem is with that, right? Whale. That's a combination of both A and E. Whale. Whale. So let's chop off the E and we'll have A. A. Also like hooray! That long A sound. Hooray! A, right? A. And so here's we're gonna address a problem that is often difficult for English speakers. And the letter A should not be pronounced like the English short E sound, which is eh. So A, in most cases, in Hindi words, not English words, sometimes we have English words that make it into Hindi, and you'll see those occasionally. And the first time you see them, you look for them in the dictionary and you'll pull out your hair and then you realize this is English. But we're talking about Hindi words, not English words. In those, A should always be pronounced as A, never as eh. And this is a problem. And why is it a problem for learners? One, if we look at this movie title, every time we see the letter E here, this is actually not the English E, the short E, which we think of le, right? Or even the French E, it's not that either, le. It is actually A. So this is Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge. So le A Jayenge, right? Dilwale, but not Dilwale, le, and not Jayenge. Dilwale le jayenge. Dilwale le jayenge. Dilwale le jayenge. So this is the source of confusion, is that oftentimes when people Romanize Hindi, there is no good way of representing A. So what did they do? We use the letter E. Now in some other languages, E does actually represent A. But in English, more often than not, it doesn't represent that at all. And so here we get confusion that we think it's the short E sound in English when it's not. Another problem. Problem number 2. So Devanagari actually has no symbol that's widely used to represent short E, the eh. There is one that was added recently, but no one really uses it, other in Hindi at least. And that sound, it does exist in Hindi, but we'll discuss that many, many lessons from now. But there is no symbol for it in Devanagari because that sound did not exist in Sanskrit. So what happens is we have this movie title down here, Jab We, and what do we have? Made. Jab we made, right? Jab we made. So jab, that's a Hindi word. We is actually an English word, like we. And then met is actually another English word. So for met, we actually need a symbol for short E because it has a short E. It's not mate. Mate is something different. Mate is someone you marry. Mate is when you are about to win a game of chess. So jab we made. So what happened here? Because we didn't have a symbol in Devanagari for short E, we had to use a. So this actually says jab we made. But now if you know it's English, you'll know instinctively that this really is trying to say jab we met, right? So this is an added source of confusion. Is not only is A romanized as E, but in addition, whenever an English word goes into Hindi, because we have no sound, we have no symbol to represent we had to use something, and more often than not, they choose A. However, rest assured, eh is not the same as A. This is a big problem for English speakers, and usually because we start out with Romanization. We start out using the English alphabet to represent stuff, and we get confused. What does A mean? Because we do not really use that in English to be A. So here's an example of a word that people often mispronounce many, many years after they learn Hindi. So this word is the number one, and it is egg, 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 egg. But because this is the first, one of the first words often learned in romanization as EK, many people years later say ek, which is actually wrong. It's wrong pronunciation because this symbol is not but it is a, and this number is egg. All right, now let's move on to the next one, which is an interesting one because you're probably not used to this sound. This sound is eh, 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 eh. Now, a lot of English speakers, when they first hear this, think this is the same as a, right? A. But hear the difference? This is a, and this is eh, a, eh, a, eh, a, eh, a, eh. Hopefully you could hear that difference. Now let's listen to the female pronunciation.
Or I. Or I. Or I. Or I.
Okay, so she did say but what did she also say? Or, which is and, I. So this is the second vowel that we can pronounce as a combination of two sounds. So most people nowadays that you will run across will say eh. However, you will also run across a few people that say I still. So this has two pronunciations. All right, now how do we make this sound? The sound rarely occurs in English. We don't really have a good symbol for it. We often represent it with A. And I don't know if it happens in other Englishes. It definitely does not happen in my native pronunciation, but it does happen in American English. Fortunate for you, because this is one of the hardest vowel sounds for a learner. So it sounds like the A in American English only in cat, cat. Now try to isolate that sound in cat, 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 cat. Now, probably if your ear is sensitive to sounds, you will realize that ah does not quite sound the same as eh. Funnily enough, it sounds exactly the same to a Hindi speaker. Now, what's the difference? The difference is how much your mouth is closed. So if you can on uh, come on by choice make the sound in cat, cat, then you can make the Hindi sound. How do you do it? Just close your mouth a little. I'm gonna start out saying the in cat, and then gradually close my mouth, and you'll hear the sound transform. Cat. You heard it? One more time. Cat. So right about the halfway point, when I close my mouth twice as much as it was open for it became the Hindi sound. So what you can do is practice saying in cat and close your mouth twice as much until it sounds like Same goes in reverse. If you open your mouth wide, it will go back to in cat. So practice that at home. And if your native English doesn't have this sound, maybe you can leave a comment and I can at some point record a video to help you, because I didn't start out teaching it this way because my native English does not have that sound, but I realized eventually that American English really is a similar sound. Okay, so not the big mouth cat. No, we don't want that. No, no, no. Close the mouth a little and you will get Now let's talk about the alternate pronunciation. It's actually the older pronunciation, which is I. And if you look in the middle of this map, the city that's highlighted in fuchsia, purplish, pink, this is actually has this vowel in it. And from which we get the English pronunciation of this city, which is Hyderabad. High. So that Y is actually this sound. I. Hyderabad. So I didn't realize that until I went to India. And I looked at the sign, and on the sign it had the spelling of the city in Devanagari, and what was on? Hyderabad, Hyderabad. But the alternative pronunciation is Hyderabad, Hyderabad. So we talked about this last time. Actually, did we? I think we did. But let me just, for completeness sake, play that sound again.
Or I. Or I. Or I.
Okay. So we talked about this last week, that everything in Hindi script is technically represented as a syllable. And what is a syllable? It is anything that centers around a vowel. It's either a vowel by itself or it's some consonant followed by a vowel. And we said actually one or more consonants followed by a vowel, which will come into play in a few weeks, right? So it's a syllable, meaning technically you can say it because it has a vowel sound in it. So we have this consonant here. What is a consonant? For those of you who might be wondering. So we explained a vowel as any sound that just comes straight out of your mouth without interference from your lips, your tongue, your throat. And in English, it's represented as A, E, I, O, U. So what is a consonant? Anything else. So anything else from B to Z or B to Z, that is not a vowel. So anything other than A, E, I, O, U, and we'll forget about the Y stuff, is a consonant in Hindi. So this consonant, as we learned last week, sounds like the letter S, but it's followed by a vowel because everything in Hindi is a syllable. So it has to have a vowel. What vowel is there? Do you remember? So we said that if nothing else is there, by default, is there. Sa. So this is actually sa. After every consonant, let's repeat, if nothing else is there, is there. Well, in theory, because there's exceptions. This is one of the sources of exceptions in Hindi reading. There's not many, but this is one. But in theory, after every consonant, is there if nothing else is there. Kind of like Akshay Kumar. When you don't have anyone else for your movie, you don't have Shah Rukh Khan, you don't have any other of the Khans, you don't have Salman Khan, then who do you use? Akshay Kumar. Okay, that was a bad joke. I know. But it's funny to me. Okay. All right. So, question. If we already have a symbol for a. So why didn't we use it? Think about this. We have a symbol already for a. Why do we need a default? Why do we say it's invisible in this case? Why didn't we just write out a? We know what it looks like. We could just write it out, right? That's what we do in English. Well, the answer is it's kind of like a shorthand, an easier way of writing so that when you're writing Hindi, you do not have to write that character for a all the time. And when you start writing Hindi, hopefully you will, I usually try to take notes at convention using Hindi so I can practice. You'll be grateful that they're shorthand and you don't have to write the a. The line itself is painful enough at the top. So it's like a shorthand. And eventually we're going to talk about the other vowels also have shorthand forms. So, second question. So when would we actually use a? When do we write it out? Okay, that's a great question. So remember, we said that everything in Hindi is either a vowel or a consonant followed by a vowel. Think about that. A vowel or a consonant followed by a vowel in its shorthand form. So when would we use a, the full form? At the beginning of a word, because there's no consonant in front of it, it comes at the beginning. Or if it comes after another vowel or the shorthand form of another vowel. Because remember, it's consonant vowel shorthand form. So any other time, we would have to use the full form, which is at the beginning of a word or after another vowel, which we've learned pretty much all of them. So we're going to come back to that eventually. So we're going to go over this one again because we mentioned last week, this is like the English sound N followed by a. So this is na. But there is a small caveat to this. If you look at the picture in the upper right hand corner, what do you see? You see a man's mouth and you see his tongue. And where is his tongue touching? the back of his top front teeth. It's not touching his gums. It's not touching anywhere else. It's touching the back of his top front teeth. And this is actually technically how this sound is created. It's not quite like English. However, for your purposes, it doesn't really matter. However, for technicalities, we should mention this because later on, when you learn the order of the alphabet, then this will make sense. Why is it that we use our tongue to touch the back of our front teeth to make the sound, which is na? So here we have our new consonants for the week. So this one sounds like an English Y followed by a. So this is ya, ya, ya. But we have to be careful here. Mr. Sabdan India here is telling us be careful because unlike English, ya is never pronounced as e or I. So in English, we have these words that have a Y in them. One is happy. And we see the Y in this is pronounced like E. And then in this other one, we have Cyrus. And here, the Y is actually pronounced like I. So if we had to pronounce these using Hindi rules, we would pronounce it Hapya and Cyrus, right? So we don't want to pronounce ya ever like E or I. So just be careful of that because especially when a word is at the end, an English speaker's tendency is to pronounce it as a E, which we can't do in Hindi. Here's the second consonant for the week, and this sounds like L followed by a. La, la, la. But once again, Mr. Sabdhan India here is telling us that unlike American English, la is never pronounced using the throat. So you probably never thought about this, or maybe you have, but in American English, we actually have two L sounds. At the beginning of words like love, notice how your tongue is positioned. Love, love. But then at the end of words, it's a different sound. For many people, bottle, coil. Can you tell that the differences between those two? Love, bottle. So the difference is tongue position. So in the second form, bottle, the back of the tongue actually curves up towards the roof of the mouth to restrict the air. You're actually making a lot of the sound with your throat, like you're choking, bottle, coil, like you're swallowing the sound. And that's the sound that does not exist in Hindi. So we never want to use that one. We only want to use the other one. It's the clear L sound. If you look at the image at the bottom left-hand corner, with the check mark, we want to use that one, la, where our tongue doesn't curve up towards our throat. You never want to use the dark one, which is a right? So, moving on. Now we have an interesting one because if you know Spanish or Portuguese, then this is going to be very easy for you. However, if you're a pure English speaker and you've never learned these other European languages, like Spanish or Portuguese, then you might have a little bit of problems with this. So this is Spanish R plus A. And we're going to discuss this to help you if you can't make this sound. So this is ra, ra. So notice it differs from English, which would be, if it was an English R, it'd be a ra, ra, but it's not. It's the Spanish R. So it's ra, 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 right? So, okay. So here we're gonna get a little familiar with your mouth. Might as well start now because it's gonna become important in a few weeks. But if you take your tongue and move it from the back of your front teeth all the way up to the roof of your mouth, just slide it along, you'll notice that there is a bump behind your front teeth. What is that bump called? I'm not going to pronounce that word because I always pronounce it wrong. So I'm going to say it's the alveolar ridge, the ridge, right? And so this is a very important ridge. And in this case, why? In English, if you notice, when we say English R, the American English R, it's the rhotic R. Your tongue does not move. You can say it all day. Your tongue just stays in the middle of your mouth, hanging out. Arr, arr. Sound like a pirate. Arr, arr. Right? It's a pirate R. Arr. Now, the Hindi R and the Spanish R is a little bit different. Actually, it's completely different. Completely different sound, everything. It's only R in name. So, what happens here is that the tongue actually lifts up, shoots up like a rocket, slaps the back of that ridge, right? And then recoils and goes back down. So it's kind of like a punch to the back of that bump. It's like slap. So it's motion. There's no motion here, and this is all motion. The sound is made by the motion. Okay. So here's the deal. If you know American English, then you're fortunate because there are sounds in American English that approximate the movement of the Spanish R. It's the same, almost the same tongue motion, almost the same sound, just with slightly different. So this is ladder. Now we have to say it fast. This is not the slow form ladder. To get the movement, you have to say it colloquially. Ladder, ladder, ladder. You see how the tongue flaps? Slaps the back of that bump. Butter, 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 butter. Edit, edit, edit. See, it's a similar tongue motion. Now, for me, butter is the most similar one. So if you want to figure out how to say Spanish R, keep saying butter, 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 butter. But instead, try to make more of an R sound. Try to slap it fast. Instead of letting your tongue linger, butter, butter, butter. Try to say it faster. Butter, 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 butter. It's more of like a slap. It's very fast and it doesn't make much contact. It's faster than the T, more violent than the T. Butter. But this pretty similar motion. Butter, 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 butter. See, you can barely tell the difference. So keep on practicing that. If you've never been able to do the single Spanish R, this is what is going to get you to that level. Keep messing it with your tongue, and eventually, strangely enough, your tongue will figure out what to do. Just keep playing with it. Butter. Try to make it sound more like the R. Try to move it a little bit faster, a little different. Butter, 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 butter. Right? Okay. So you're going to do that. So now we're going to practice a few words. We haven't read words before. We've just been doing individual sounds, but now it's time to do some words. So I'm going to give you a few seconds and you say what this word is. This is I. So it's A followed by E. I. So this is ag, 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 which brings us to an interesting point. So why didn't we say aga, aga? Because that's what we learned. We learned that if there's nothing after a consonant, then is there. So in this case, why did we say ag? We got rid of the Okay. So this is exception number one. One of the most important exceptions you will learn from the beginning is that at the end of words, we only pronounce if we absolutely have to pronounce the last consonant or multiple consonant, right? So if we don't have to, if we can actually say the word without it, we chop it off because we don't want it there. Only if we absolutely have to. Kind of like Akshay Kumar. You only get him as an actor if you absolutely have to. Okay, I really like Akshay Kumar, but it's so convenient. I mean, come on, the guy only does comedy movies. All right, so like kind of like a some kind of discarded ugly duckling, but yeah, he's very good actor in my opinion. So we're gonna keep putting this into practice, and this word here would be once again, we have followed by ma, and we chopped off the at the end because we can say So um, um. So this sound, this word, I should say, it's not really a word. It's more of a suffix. Is e, e. Now, if you did you hear what's at the end of this? E, e. Now, your tendency as an English speaker would be to pronounce this as just as e, right? But it's not. It's e. Why? So unlike English, ya is not pronounced as e or I, like in the words happy and Cyrus. So it's only ever pronounced as ya. So here too, we had to say iya. So we had to kind of leave a little bit of the sound. Now we didn't say iya, iya, right? If you notice, I didn't quite do it that strongly. Iya. I said iya, iya. So at the end of words, it's a caveat. I didn't put it in the slides, but at the end of words, if we have to say then we kind of make it a very faint one. So we kind of soften it to it's very slight. It's almost like we're still trying to get rid of it. We have to say it, we realize we have to say it, but we're trying to chop it away. So yeah. So what did you say for this? Un. Un. So this is u followed by na. Un. Un. Now be careful with this. If you said un, then that's actually incorrect. This is un. Very short. Un. Yes, this is un. So this is the long oo. Un. Un. So this is a followed by sa. As. As. Which means hope. So this is ma followed by na. Mun. 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 Now, if you said man, that is actually incorrect. So we want to be careful. This is a because there's no symbol there. So this is a mun. 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 The mind or the heart. So this is ga followed by ma. Gum. 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 Sadness. So this is ma followed by ga followed by na. Ma gun. Magan. 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 So this is sa followed by na followed by ma. Sanam. 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 Be careful here. So what is this? Well, remember, every consonant that's not followed by some other vowel symbol, which we haven't learned the vowel symbols yet, but rest assured that there is no vowel symbol here, then it is a is the vowel. So there are actually two vowels in this word. So the first syllable is ga, and then the second syllable is e. So we don't want to get rid of the Oh, remember it's there. So this is actually gai. Ga followed by e. Gai. 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 Now, if especially if you learned Hindi strangely in the beginning, you might have a tendency here to say gi, but remember the is there. Gai. 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 Nai. So na followed by e, just like the last one. Nai. 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 Na followed by e. Nai. 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 This is I followed by na. In. 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 Remember, I is very short. In. In. This is G followed by M followed by N. G, M, N. Gaman, 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 gaman. So here we see an interesting thing is that now, because is at the beginning of the word, it's not after another consonant. Now we write its full form. So this is followed by ma followed by na. Aman, aman, aman. Ma, na. Aman, aman. So remember, it's not aman, but aman. So this is ma, sa. Ma, sa. Ma, sa. Amas, amas, amas. So this is ma followed by e, mai, 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 ma, e, ma, e, mai. I think we already did this one. This is sha followed by ra, Spanish R. Sha, ra, ma. Sha, ra, ma. Sha, ra, ma. Sharam, 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 sharam. This is sa followed by na. Sun, 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 sun. So this is u followed by ma followed by ga. Mug, mug, umag, 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 umag. This is na followed by ma. Num, 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 num. This is na followed by la. Remember, not with the back of the throat, but with the front of the mouth and the tongue. Null, 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 null. Once again, this is interesting, is that we have a vowel followed by another vowel. So what did we do? We used the full forms because why? Because the second vowel, A, comes directly after another vowel. So we have to use the full form because there is no consonant there. And we haven't learned yet even learned to use the short form. Therefore, this is a, 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 I, 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 I. So this is a followed by ma followed by ra. A, ma, ra. Amar, 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 immortal. So this is remember the half closed mouth cat, followed by sha, ash, 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 ash. Now remember, this isn't the same as ash. This is ash, ash. So this is a followed by na, followed by ka, anaka, anak, 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 anak. Which this shouldn't actually be here because we haven't learned ka yet. I will remove that from the slide. This is a followed by ra, a followed by ra, or, which is different than o, right? This is a, like in dog, American pronunciation of dog, or, or, or. Now this is the other one. What happened? We chopped off one of the ears, and so now we have o followed by ra, or, 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 or. This is na followed by ga followed by ra, nagar, nagara, nagar, 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 nagar. Now here you're probably, if you're an English speaker, you're fighting a tendency. And the tendency that you're fighting, which we will discuss eventually, is your inclination might be to change the second into an ah. So you might want to say nagar. Well, this is stress. This is a stress, and this is one of the major differences between English and Hindi. In English, in certain words, in certain positions, depending on the word, the length of the word, the number of syllables, we will change our vowel sounds. And it's a really difficult habit to get rid of because we've done this from birth and our brain has now memorized how to change the vowel, when to change the vowel, where to change the vowel. And so everything in you is going to be saying, well, this is nagar, but it's not. It's nagar. So what do we learn from this? Is that in Hindi, we always pronounce the vowels exactly the same. It's actually easier than English, strangely enough. But yet now you're going to have to fight against your internal tendency to change the vowel sounds. If you can say the vowel exactly the same way every single time, like a robot, you will speak Hindi perfectly. So, unless there's an exception, we do not change the vowel sounds ever. It's always exactly the same. So, as you're reading these words, now start to think, does this vowel sound the same way that I learned it? Or am I changing it? Am I making it longer? Am I changing its sound? Because this is stress. And we want to stay away from stress because Hindi is not a stress based language, it's a syllable timed language. And so the syllables sound basically the same, basically the same length. And at fast speeds, it sounds to an English speaker like a machine gun. We'll discuss this a little bit later in another lesson. So this is nagar. Nagar. Remember, both us are exactly the same. Nagara. Nagar. Nagar. This is na followed by ra followed by ma. Naram. 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 This is ma followed by ga followed by ra. Ma followed by ga followed by ra. Magar. 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 And once again, both us sound exactly the same. And Magar. Magar. This is ga followed by a. Gae. Gae. Remember, there's always the if nothing else is there. Ga followed by a. Gae. Ga a. Gae. Gae. So this is followed by sa followed by ra. Asar. 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 Effect. So this is ra followed by sa. Ra followed by sa. Ras. 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 Juice. Ras. juice. A followed by G followed by Ra. Agar, agar, if. U followed by Sa followed by Sa. Usas. U followed by Sa followed by Sa. Remember, this is very short. Usas, usas. This is U followed by Sa followed by Ra. Usar, 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 usar. Remember, the second vowel is not or any of the above. It is a. Usar, usar. This is O followed by G. Og, 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 og. This is O followed by G followed by La. Ogal, ogal, ogal. Now once again, remember this L sound is formed with the tip of your tongue at the front of your mouth. So we don't want to say ogle, we want to say ogal, 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 ogal. This is ah. What's the difference between this and this? One line. One is O, and one is ah. Ah followed by Ra followed by Sa. Aras, 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 aras. This is A once again, followed by La. All, 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 all. This is Ga followed by Ra. Gar, 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 gar. This is Ga followed by Ga followed by Na. Gagan, 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 gagan. This is ga. We don't know that second syllable. Moving ahead. This is ga followed by oo. Ga followed by oo. Go. 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 This is ga followed by ra followed by e. Garai. Ga followed by ra followed by e. Garai. Ga ra e. Garai. 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 This is oo followed by e. Once again, because the vowel is after another vowel, we have to use its full form. Ooey. 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 This is la followed by ga. Lug. 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 This is la followed by ga followed by na. La ga na. Lagan. 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 This is sa followed by ra. Sar. 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 One of the pronunciations of head. Sar. This is sa followed by ra followed by sa. Sa ra sa. Sa ras. Sa ras. Saras. 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 This is sa followed by la followed by ga. Sa lag. Sa lag. Sa lag. Salag. 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 This is ya followed by ma followed by la. Ya ma la. Yamal. 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 This is ya followed by sha. Yash, 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 yash. All right, it's a long list of words, and strangely enough, all of them were made using the very few consonants and vowels we know. So, what's the homework this week? Practice the vowel sounds, once again, that you just learned until you think you have them sounding like the audio recording. Once again, don't be afraid to change your voice. You're not speaking English anymore. You can imitate, you can change, you can play with your voice, you can mess around until you get the sound right. It doesn't have to sound anything like English or your voice that you use when you speak English. You can make up a voice for yourself. As long as you make the vowel sounds sound as close as you can to the Hindi pronunciation. Second, you can ask a mother tongue Hindu Urdu speaker if your pronunciation is correct for the vowels, especially in the consonants. Ask them, is this good? How could I improve? And then apply their suggestions. Remember, no ego. If they say, oh, that's terrible, well, that's terrible. You know, we're a baby. We got to start somewhere, and we're going to fall many times, but practice is what makes a language perfect. No language is learned without a million failures. Trust me on that one. Then you can write each of the letters that we learned in this lesson 100 times, and every time you write it, say the sound out loud. And of course, listen to as much Hindi as possible. TV, movies, music, dramas, all hours of day, on your drive to work, at home, at the background, have it in your head. And eventually, the sounds will stick in your brain because you have to learn how to speak like someone else now. And in addition, which we didn't do last week, is try to make up as many English words as you can using the letters that we already have learned, which I believe the full list is there below. Try to make up as many English words as you can with those vowels. Now, remember that if the vowel comes after the consonant, the only one we know how to do is a, right? So if you add a sa with a a, it's not going to be sa, it's going to be sa. So we want to stick with that and keep it in mind, and then see what you can do. So once again, thank you very much for tuning in to the Hindi reading class part 2. And next week we'll go into part 3 and you will learn the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful matra. So thank you very much for tuning in.